streaming the Virginia Talk Radio Network and Rewind 1039. It's that easy. Virginia Talk Radio Network, Rewind 1039. Now streaming.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Right off the bat, time to take a detour.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
We thought we were going to have to slam on the brakes. Then we thought we weren't. Then we eventually did. That's the explanation for that soundbite. So, CJ Daniels, good luck tonight as you and the Hurricanes for a national championship. That was the tweet that came out from the Liberty Flames that popped up on my timeline. Trey, have we entered a new era where programs now are wishing their former players luck? And should the JMU faithful send a counter one, because they are rivals with Liberty, to Indiana for like half the roster and coaching staff in Bloomington?
I was going to say, like, good luck to Elijah Sherratt,
Aiden Fisher, the linebacker.
Well, you know,
obviously Signetti, D'Angelo Pons.
The only time I can think of this is the Eagles. When the Chiefs won the first title, the Eagles tweeted out a "Congrats, Big Red," which made sense because of like basically the fabric of the basically the fabric of Philadelphia, like in terms of Howie Roseman, for example, is still an Andy Reid guy, like part of the Andy Reid tree, ironically. But that's the only thing I think of. I bet you another school has done this that I can think of. But
I'm sure it's happened, and we just haven't noticed.
I actually think it's not a bad idea because, like, you could get, like, hey, telling either bounce back guys like, hey, we're attractive to other programs.
My man Trey, exactly where I was going with this. I think this is brilliant. You're really touting the strength of your program.
You understand who you are. Like,
yes.
It's actually opposed of like, we understand who we are.
Like, okay, Liberty could win a national championship in some sport. It ain't going to be football. It never was going to be football. But they could win one in softball. Like, theoretically, they have a very good softball program and continue to put in high-end talent. If one of the pitchers booms to a Najee Kennedy level, Liberty might all of a sudden make it in a way you go, wait, I didn't see that coming. Theoretically, Coastal did it in baseball. I guess Liberty could do the same thing as well. Like, there's so many directions that this could go. But I like it, Trey. I mean, and the other thing is, if anybody should be doing it, shouldn't it be JMU? Because JMU's got a coach that probably is not going back to a Power 5 program in Billy Napier. But he's brought in a number of players from Florida and has shown he can coach up Power 5 caliber players. He did it very well in Louisiana.
I wonder if JMU's saving their posts for when they win the national championship tonight, presumably. I mean, like, hey, the core of the first ever 16-0 team was built at James Madison. Because I think, personally, that looks a lot better.
If they want to troll me, they'll have a graphic of all of them, and it'll be forever a Duke.
Yeah, because if you did listen to the morning warm-up this morning, I did pick. I think Indiana's going to win, and I think probably cover.
We'll get to that Fast Five at 5-ish in just a moment. But I think it's very clever and creative for Liberty that they're going after CJ Daniels playing for the Miami Hurricanes tonight. First of all, he left on good terms for Liberty. Second, he went from LU to LSU and then to the U, in part because let's keep it real here. I mean, if there's one thing we'll get to in the Fast Five at 5-ish, if not today, another day, I mean, Miami's buying players. They've been doing it since the transfer portal really opened up and NIL was a thing. Ask West Virginia fans, by the way.
Like, I guess, a person that has a big brain, they're like a Mensa scholar. That's what they've been using, right? Isn't that the term?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
By the way,
pun intended.
Yes, pun fully intended. But I love it for Liberty. I will be curious if JMU follows suit tonight if anything pops up with Indiana winning, which Trey predicted in the morning warm-up would happen. Shane Metlin, DNRonline.com, will have his thoughts. Meanwhile,
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
The equivalent of "you look pretty, but" is about to come out right now in the fast lane as well. Not to overlook the Virginia Cavalier men's basketball team, but to overlook the Virginia Cavaliers. Their weekend performance against SMU, as strong as it was, erasing the early 14-4 deficit. Granted, that type of deficit early in the game is, 10 points is pretty navigable. But erasing that deficit and then winning on the road 82-78. Good win for Virginia. It sticks with the theme of what we've seen for the Wahoos. So we'll get to that later. They have the entire week off before Tony Bennett Court becomes a reality when they get ready to host North Carolina this coming Saturday up at John Paul Jones Arena. But it was Liberty and Virginia Tech who I think showed more there was a sense of urgency from their fans wanting to see more out of them than Virginia. Virginia, let me rephrase it. I would say Virginia, they wanted to see something, winning on the road at SMU. Liberty and Virginia Tech were closer to the gotta have Liberty and need to have Virginia Tech. Liberty's gotta have was finding a way to win a game when you blew a lead. It's been real with them. Let's just keep it real for the Flames. And yet they found a way to perform better. Part of it is Richie McKay noted afterwards, the Flames were up, again, to get my usher on. I was over it talking with a fan. Under 4-minute timeout was like 3:58 first half. Liberty's got a 16-point lead. Start talking with a fan. Mike, good commenter of ours, often appears in our fan feedback segments. Bumped into him over it in the concession line. And so we and I were talking. All of a sudden, I turned around, and what was a 16-point lead had whittled down to 6, and it was even smaller than that at halftime. And this is the second consecutive game where Liberty has had a hefty teens advantage. 17, Middle Tennessee. Heavy 17 against New Mexico State Thursday night, and then Saturday afternoon, 16 in the first half against UTEP. And we mentioned it Friday in the Fast Lane about player-led leadership and Richie McKay not getting as spirited about that. Well, apparently there was a different tone, and I think it's justified.
I was really pleased with our response. I'm old enough in this to know there's going to be an ebb and flow to every game. I got a little fatigued that we let double-digit lead evaporate so quickly, and I shared that with him at halftime. And UTEP came out and made a bunch of them in a row. And the great thing about today is we didn't react. We played with emotion, but we weren't emotional, and that's a really good deposit.
Got a little fatigued with having to tell them. Again, a lot of this comes through the context of parenting 2 7-year-old boys right now. But we are at the phase where we will ask them to do things, clean up the playroom, get ready in the morning, any of these just regular chores that you have to help coach along your children. And it popped up with Richie McKay of getting fatigued. I'm not going to deny it here in the Fast Lane. I will get my confession on. There are a lot of times where my wife is more patient than I am. Shock, shock. She and I will both go, we're getting tired of having to tell you this again and again and again. Depends on the day whose tone gets more curt. Frankly, it depends on the season of life. My wife's had a little bit more stressful season recently, so it's been on her. But in the fall, when football season's here, it's often on me. So, the kids are getting that. But you get tired of saying the same thing. Well, it doesn't go away when you're dealing with college-age kids, even in an era where there's rev share and NIL. And Richie McKay, I think, is understandable why he was getting a little fatigued, to use his words, calling out the Flames and having to point out the fact that they have these lulls in games. He let it slide Thursday night, and he let the players work through it themselves. They were giving up that 17-point halftime lead. There really wasn't this grand, let me call a timeout and read the riot act. It was letting them figure it out. But the Flames blew the lead right before halftime, and what should have been a comfortable halftime margin against UTEP was not that. And that's where Richie McKay, getting a little fatigued and letting them know, kind of jumped in. Look, at some point, you are still the coach and you have to step up. But I agree with the strategy. And John Manson from SCRide.com will join us tomorrow in the Fast Lane, good Lord willing, and we'll ask him about it. But, you're talking about early enough in the season and core of more veteran players, which Liberty's got the three, obviously, of Porter, Cleveland, and Matheny. Let them figure it out. But at some point, you still have to be, in my case, at home, the parent. But in this case, the coach in the situation and say, I've let them figure it out long enough. But at some point, I got to pump the brakes on this. And that's where Richie McKay, it sounded like it was I'm going to light into my team. But then at some point, I'm going to let them still figure this out. And Zach Cleveland mentioned this afterwards that, their second half response was better, but they still needed to get prodded to that point.
I think we learned a lesson. Like our film session on Friday was about the second half. How do we start off hot? And I think it was more of a mental thing because obviously we got the guys, we got the skill and the talent. So just the mental side of things, knowing that these teams can go on runs fast, and like especially when they were shoot the shots they do, which is kind of random shots, random threes. It's like they can get hot quick. So just it was a mental aspect I think that we learned quick.
It's not being on your toes. Like, it sounds so cliche, but in sports, being on your toes, you can spring to action, you can act quicker. But Zach Cleveland, where he's getting at, and this again makes sense, is there's a randomness to an extent, but also give UTEP credit. Like, they were shooting around, they deviated from the scouting report and it threw the Flames off. But if you're reacting and you're more mentally engaged offensively, you can put a stop to that sooner. And that is where the Flames have ultimately had these lulls. But Richie McKay, as much as he led into them at halftime, it sounded like, from the way Richie McKay discussed this afterwards, that there was a concern in the moment with the lulls. But at the end of the day, there were lulls, and then you let it go.
Well, again, they're both really good teams. So I don't, Bryson. I mean, it's a good question. I probably would tell you like this happens in college basketball. I don't know what the scores are today, but I can guarantee you some team that was supposed to win by so many points didn't win. And we just can't get in that space where just because our record says one thing that we're unbeatable. We're not unbeatable. We are a work in progress. The great thing is, man, it's a joy, it's a blessing, it's a privilege. It's awesome to coach these guys. And I want to make sure that we're continuing to view each possession as valuable. So it's kind of been the message.
So there's this thing in society where when you bring up the phrase tough love, you're too outdated, which I think is absolutely absurd. Tough love emphasizes both words, shockingly. Tough means sometimes you need to be hard and firm with your standards. And you need to let someone know who's in charge. We're going through that with our kids now. Again, minor detour in the fast lane.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
But I'm kind of the belief, and I've seen this a lot, where the gender of the parent often matches up with the gender of the child in terms of who's harsh. Wife, mom can tell daughter, hey, maybe you shouldn't wear that dress. For dad, you're one step close to just punching the nuclear code in. Like, it's not a wise idea. The flip side is that when it comes to sons, mom is not always the one who does that. It's the dad. I'm that way in our house. My wife done a phenomenal job with her daughter. Very firm. It has paid off extremely well. About to be a mom. Very successful in her career. There's so many things that my wife should be proud of with regard to that. But it's different with boys. And there's just the dynamic with it. I talk about this with my mom and dad all the time. My dad was definitely the firm one growing up. My mom could be firm, but my dad was more firm. And I never got it till I got older and now really appreciated before I was a dad, but now it's even more as a dad. Sometimes that's the case, is you need that tough love. Tough love. Love means you still love them, means you still care about them, means you still have faith in them. But you have to get tough with them. And for Richie McKay, getting tough on his team at halftime, but still overall loving him, I think it was indicative of how he carried himself after that 80-69 victory against UTEP. Clearly tough. Clearly needed to, because player-led was getting you only so far. They won against New Mexico State Thursday night, but it was kind of clinging for dear life at the end. Then they had a lead and they let it slip again. And Richie McKay at some point has to intervene and be like, look, I'm the coach. I've got to let you know, here's where the standard is. And then they figured it out, as you would expect a veteran-laden team to do. The Flames, they won by 11, but it felt like it was closer to a 13 to 15-point game. Sorry to Richie Longshots, who got victimized by the backdoor cover. But that's the nature of where things are for the Flames. And it's where you need to go when you're in a spot. Meanwhile, if you need to go somewhere to get the best deal, it's not hard to find. InsaneRadioDeals.com. Shop 24/7 at InsaneRadioDeals.com. My wife and I, we enjoyed Oliver's on Rivermont. We went out to eat there this past Saturday night. The food was consistently seasoned across every single bite the way you would want. My wife, very big fan of her steak. I enjoyed the chicken and shrimp that I had. I mixed and matched because we also got the appetizer. My wife got the steak, which is from the Oliver's menu. But she also, with me, we both got the raw oysters, a dozen of them. You a raw oyster fan, Trey? You're acting like you are.
I am.
They're delicious, aren't they?
I am.
My man, when done right, premier. You've been to Raw. Have you had the raw oysters, by the way, at Oliver's and 801
I
Raw?
have not. I had the smash. I had the smash. Storm and I both got a smash burger from there.
What was your grade on it?
It was pretty good. It's
Pretty
solid. You can't really go wrong with a burger, but I think they do a really good job there.
And they got the Sidewinder fries, seasoned and everything, to complement the smash burger. My wife and I weren't in the mood for that on Saturday night, so we just found other items. Over 100 items on the menu. When you blend the two together, you will find something you like at 801 Raw Bar and Oliver's on Rivermont. Friday night was apparently their big night. It was a little bit calmer Saturday night, although they did have karaoke going on, which was kind of comical. How do I say this? If you do voice lessons, Lynchburg is the place for you. You can come here and make a killing, because there were a lot of people where my wife and I, we listen to karaoke not because we appreciate great singing. We appreciate entertaining singing, if you get our drift. But we were in the other room so we could still converse, watch some of the football game, which we will get to momentarily in the Fast Five at 5-ish. But we touched on Liberty and what you wanted to see out of them. Virginia Tech, I think, was arguably even greater in the level of urgency that Hokie fans wanted to see from their team. Ultimately, they showed the level of resiliency for what you needed if you're Virginia Tech. And Mike Young, above all else, proud of the resilience this team showed after their 3 or 4 game streak, or skid, or patch, or whatever you want to call it. You know, it's capped off by the buzzer beater from half court at SMU. And it's cliche and easy to say, but they got back to 3-3 in the ACC. They won with a relative level of comfort, and deservedly proud of their resilience.
For that team, for my team, our team, to respond and to play as hard as they did from the start, I think is just another testament to who they are as people and the team that we're becoming. I'm quite pleased with a lot of it.
Yes, he should be, because Virginia Tech played the wire-to-wire way that you would want. I got a friend of mine, by the way. It's the tutor, the one that you probably heard me discuss, Trey, and many of our listeners may have. The Alabama tutor that took 7 years to graduate, but was a tutor during the Nick Saban era. They had to keep him around. NIL tutor, yes, in air quotes. This guy's a trip, and he uses the phrase, sometimes you got to put on your big boy pants and in the pity party. To Virginia Tech's ever-loving credit, they channeled their inner tutor and put on their big boy pants and ended the pity party from SMU on Wednesday night.
We could have moped around. We could have been sluggish to start, but played a good ball going at the half, up 11, I think it was, and closed it out in the second in pretty good fashion. Ball handling a little choppy, but we're good. We get to 3-3 in Syracuse, New York. Here we come.
It's very simple for Virginia Tech. For one, they had the right attitude. They came out, they looked like they were focused, looked locked in. And it just showed in the performance. They had an 11-point lead at halftime. Again, not watching much of the game because I had the Virginia game on mute since they were playing at the same time. But of course, the reason why is, to confess, I was just listening to the game on the VTRN Sports app, your home for great play-by-play, like the College Football Playoff National Championship game this evening. Virginia Tech focused. It felt focused the way they jumped out in that game. And yes, they had an 8-point lead. Notre Dame clawed back a couple of times and made it uncomfortable. But Virginia Tech always had an answer.
But not with 5 seconds left, like it's been since the Elon game.
Correct. It's not been waiting around, anything like that. And first of all, you just feel good if you're Virginia Tech that you finally get to be on the right end of a runaway win.
Yeah, it beats the alternative. But, Dylan, I've said it in here. You've heard me say it. It's what we sign up for, and we're going to have a lot more.
Yes, they are. They're going to have a lot more. But for Virginia Tech, they needed one of those slump busters, to use the phrase of Kelvin Harris, three-time national champion center for the Miami Hurricanes, who was our guest Friday in the Fast Lane. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
Right there. Sometimes you just need a slump buster. In Notre Dame, they're a conference opponent, so it grabs your attention. There's enough talent there at the backcourt, especially with Shrewsbury and obviously, Coach Shrewsbury as well. His son plays for Notre Dame. But for Virginia Tech, sometimes you just need to relock in and just focus on doing what you do.
To lead by double digits for the rest of the game, you daggone right I'm gonna hammer on it. I hope it comes to fruition.
Hey.
Go ahead.
And sort of, is that something you were hammering home during practice this week? Like what were you focusing on practice in order to keep doing
not just winning the game. All right, playing winning basketball, rebounding, taking away the arc, which we did.
It's just a mental reset for Virginia Tech. That's what Saturday felt like. It resets them. They're back at 3-3 in the ACC. They're not a team that's in the, you can pretty surely say they're going to the big dance right now. Honestly, there may be just 2 in the ACC that fit that description. Duke's the obvious one. They went on the road and just whacked Stanford. I mean, that thing was non-competitive from the beginning. That might be, oddly enough, Duke's most impressive performance, given how well Stanford has played. And it's the second of the West Coast road trips. And Duke, that was a veteran, mature victory for the Blue Devils. I know I give them a hard time at certain points, but that was you like to see that if you're John Shire and a Duke fan. Then the other team I'd actually say is Virginia. Carolina looked wobbly, losing both games on the West Coast. Carolina and Louisville are kind of I still feel pretty good about them, but they've had some lulls and hiccups. Virginia, I don't know if they're quite on the level of Duke. I don't think the upside's there. But for Virginia, they clearly have a lot of answers and can beat you a lot of ways, and they're a very mature team. Ryan Odom has hit the right spots with Virginia and found a way to do that. But then after that collection, Duke and Virginia, then Carolina, Louisville, there's a chunk of these ACC teams that are all scrapping. I think a good chunk of them have a chance to go to the NCAA tournament. Again, to get my usher on for a second, my guy Will Wade probably got work to do. That loss to Georgia Tech was bad at home over the weekend. That puts them, I think, on the clear outside looking in. But you've got a whole handful of Stanford, Cal, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Miami. I think Clemson, by the way, is the other one that I put in the Carolina, Louisville, maybe not quite Virginia category, but close. But Clemson, I forgot about them. But everybody else we just rattled off. Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Miami, the 2 California schools. SMU, I'd say, is probably well in. Wake Forest as well. They're all in this cluster of anybody can beat anybody on any given night. I do think you put Carolina and Louisville in there, just given Louisville's injuries and what we've seen out of Carolina recently. Those are all teams, and if you can grab a number of those wins, you strengthen yourself. And Virginia Tech getting back to 3-3, they at least are in a spot where, okay, they can do that. And it starts against Syracuse later this week. Meanwhile, covering the Commonwealth starts when we return with the JMU Dukes, then the Virginia Cavaliers, then the Washington Commanders, and then we'll touch on the Virginia Tech Hokies. We'll have a quick thoughts on the national championship game. The comment of why we'll have to wait till tomorrow, because that was going to be our Fast Five at 5-ish. Instead, why? Because we have more to get to now here in the Fast Lane.
Mark Dalton here with the Terry Auto Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
We're joined by Corey Argentino from Earthright Mid-Atlantic and Earthright Roofing. Corey, blending those two together, the roofing and the solar, how does that benefit the customer?
Well, the customer now has a trusted source, a local trusted source for solar and roofing needs. So if you've already gone solar or know somebody who needs a roof, it's a great mix. You've already had the experience with the company, understand how we work. We're local and we have a showroom here. You can come right in and see how it works together.
You mentioned the showroom. People can come in when they speak with an Earthright consultant. How beneficial is that with a consultant that can consult on both roofing and solar?
Well, I think it's very important. And I say why people should come in the showroom. I drove 5 hours to get my dog. I know many other people have. You can drive 30 minutes or an hour to come see something before you purchase it. You can touch and feel the product, meet the team, and see how we do business.
It's an easy way to get acquainted with both Earthright Mid-Atlantic in the solar division, as well as Earthright Roofing and the ability to blend those two pieces together. Come by, see the showroom on Timberlake Road in Lynchburg, and learn more at earthright.com.
The holiday season may have passed, but the deals at InsaneRadioDeals.com, they're everlasting. Especially when it comes to your favorite food joints in the Lynchburg area, like 801 Raw Bar and Oliver's on Rivermont, the Caribbean Jerk Pot, Yamada, the Yard on 5th Street, Ballard Brewing, and Downtown Cairo. $50 gift cards for only $37.50. Deals that you can only get at InsaneRadioDeals.com. So start your New Year's and your taste buds off right with these local food joints.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Copycat League. That's what they call the NFL. But you could argue Copycat League could be what you're getting in the Group of Five world of college football on social media. Does that happen to have some legs? Find out right now in
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth. A look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Dukes.
Well, the Liberty Flames earlier today tweeted out, "Good luck, CJ Daniels," former Liberty wide receiver, and your Miami Hurricanes tonight in the national championship game. Which begs the question, if JMU wants to troll Liberty, would it be wise to maybe just do an entire one for the Indiana Hoosiers with the coaching staff and the roster being littered with former Dukes? Are we going to see that or not? Somebody who has his finger on the pulse with the Dukes, Shane Metlin of DNROnline.com with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, do you expect there to be social media love from JMU towards their former Dukes who are now at Indiana, much like Liberty has done with the former Flame, CJ Daniels, who might be catching passes or at least blocking for the U tonight?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I honestly should have thought of this before and maybe asked a little bit if that's something that was planned by the social media people or the media people in general at JMU. I wouldn't be surprised because at this point, anything that gets the name of your program out there can't hurt, right? Like, and I think there are Group of Five programs who, to a certain degree, will embrace the idea that, you come here, you're going to get to where you want to go, even if we're maybe a stop on the way there, whether you're talking about NFL, you're talking about national championship. I think there are programs that are going to embrace that idea. And I wouldn't be surprised if JMU tries to take a little bit of advantage of the fact there's so many former Dukes playing for a national championship tonight.
You mentioned that point. Is it easier to be secure in JMU knowing that you've got a coach that probably is not going to get another crack at the Power 5 level because of what happened at Florida, but clearly has had success at the Group of Five level, and JMU would have to think is very confident that he can replicate it in Harrisonburg in Billy Napier?
Yeah, I think that's been a little bit of the idea. Even Billy Napier, when he came to Harrisonburg and introduced himself to us and everything, he said, this was outside the press conference, just talking on the side with some media members. He said, I've made more money in my life than I ever expected to when I got into football coaching. And so that's not what's driving me now. I want to be somewhere where I can win. And I think this is a good place to do that. And you will wait and see what happens. If you have a ton of success at JMU and other offers come, you never know what might happen. But I think there's at least some hope that this isn't just, a small pit stop on the way to a school with a lot more money.
Yeah, that's the big point about it. And it's almost a sales point to future recruits of look at how many guys we've put on to the next level. In big colleges, Shane, you tout how your guys are doing in the NFL. For JMU, is it going to be now, and maybe other schools in this stature, touting how many guys are having success at the power level?
I think to a certain degree. I think it very varies with who you're recruiting. But, I think there are going to be some players that get recruited with the idea of, hey, come and stay if you really like it, but you might get somewhere where you can make a lot of money after you're done here, whether it be at a Power 5 school that may pay, in the millions for players at certain positions, or whether it is getting you to the pro level. I think, that's going to be the selling point. And I've had coaches tell me, this may be less with football, but some other sports, say, like, it's a lot easier to recruit, to convince an all-conference player to stay with you than it is to get an all-conference player to come join you. So I think there's a little bit of that. We'll get you on campus and we'll try our best to keep you. But, if we get a year or two out of you with production, that's kind of the reality of what we're working for right now.
DNRonline.com, and it's Shane_DNR Sports for Shane Metlin, who's with us in the fast lane talking some JMU Dukes. How much of an exhale has there been for the JMU Lady Dukes, given that, they were on a bit of the skids, and now all of a sudden, they hammered Marshall, they took down Georgia Southern, kind of a reversal of what happened a week and change ago. Is the vibe different around the Lady Dukes?
The vibe is different, and it's just been a little bit more up and down than it was last year with them. I think, we talked to Sean O'Regan about this at a post-game press conference the other day, and it was kind of like, when they really just blew the doors off of Marshall. I remember them having some teams a few years ago that were really, really talented and could do that in conference, but also weren't necessarily locked in every night and would lose some games that you wouldn't expect. And I asked him if there were some similarities with this team, and he said maybe there was. And, I think the goal now is to try to be as locked in as possible as you get closer to March and late February. But, they left themselves with not a lot of room for error if they want to get one of those top 2 seeds in the Sun Belt, which is kind of the key thing as far as setting yourself up for the tournament with that kind of a crazy bracket where you get a lot of buys if you're in the top 2.
Meanwhile, the men, the vibe, obviously it's different from the women. Is the vibe a, confusion? It doesn't seem like they have a lot of answers right now.
Yeah, I think the vibe is disappointment, really. I think they thought they put together a pretty solid roster, and there seem to be pieces there that just haven't gelled at this point in the season. It's taken a lot longer. Last year, they got off to a very similar start as they did this year, and then right around this point in the season, they went on and won 10 straight conference games, and they haven't done that this year. It's gotten harder and harder to win games as they got into the conference play, losing a lot of close ones, not being able to hang on the leads. So, I think there's still a little bit of that hope, at least with the coaching staff, that, yeah, we can do what we did last year. We're about to go on a run. It's just got to click. But, it's getting almost to the point where you wonder if there's going to be time for it to click.
Yeah. That's part of the question is, TikTok. We'll get more answers on that. Meanwhile, the answers to where you can find Shane's work are easy. Shane_DNR Sports, Twitter, and DNRonline.com. Shane, thanks for talking some JMU Dukes today in the Fast Lane.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Now to UVA.
JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. Hootie, first of all, the Virginia Cavaliers. You were thinking, and we were too last week to get our usher on, and people can go back and receipt us.
And guess what? We keep
at Fastlane Ed Lane. We were both thinking, 1-1 over the 2-game stretch on the road would have been a good outcome. Instead, they went to Louisville and won. Granted, Mikael Brown was out, and that's been a big issue for the Cards. And then they weathered the early deficit at SMU and held on for a win there. How pleasantly surprised should Wahoo fans be, given what they saw over the last week with 2 big road wins in the ACC?
I think they should be delighted, Ed. And Ryan Odom kind of summed it up after the SMU game and said any road win in this conference is pure gold. And it certainly was. SMU was previously undefeated at home, and even though Louisville was minus Brown and had been for quite a while, they had only lost once at home. So to go into those 2 arenas and come out with wins, it speaks volumes about Virginia's ability to be able to win on the road, and that's something that can't be taken for granted.
JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe with us in the Fast Lane. You mentioned not taking it for granted for the Virginia Cavaliers. the bye week now. I mean, is the other reality of this the fact that they really didn't have to, burn through Jakari White and rushing him back, and now all of a sudden you have North Carolina coming this Saturday, more around the hoopla about that in a moment, but you factor Jakari White and being able to nurse him back from injury. Now you get a chance to get fully healthy for what's going to be a different kind of stretch run, but oddly enough, after the Carolina game, maybe feels a little more navigable.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've played some of the better teams in the league thus far, and all on the road, by the way, pretty much. So things should lighten up a little bit. Carolina, of course, struggling a little bit. They've lost 3 out of their last 4, all on the road. Just to talk about how tough it is winning on the road. And I think they were smart in the way they handled Jakari. I guess they knew that they might have to suffer a little bit, but in the long run, it was going to work out better for the team. And even though he's certainly not at 100%, he can play, and I think he'll work his way back into a pretty good groove in the pretty near future.
Hootie, as JerryRatcliffe.com founder Jerry Ratcliffe is with us in the fast lane. Hootie, Tony Bennett court will now become a reality. How much twisting do they have to do with Tony Bennett to agree to this?
That's a good question. As modest as he is, he probably, I doubt that he resisted it, but he probably didn't do any campaigning for it to happen. He's just a guy that doesn't really need any accolades, and he's not into that sort of thing. If it happens, it happens. But it was like when he passed Terry Holland as the all-time winningest coach here, he was almost embarrassed, the fact that he passed Holland, because he respected Terry Holland so much and what he had done previously in Virginia basketball. So I think the fact that they're naming the court for him, I wouldn't be surprised if he asked them to put Holland and Debbie Ryan and their names on it too. But that's just the kind of guy he is, and so well deserved what he did in reviving Virginia basketball. They had kind of wandered around the basketball wilderness for 20 years or more, and until he came to town and put his brand on Virginia basketball. And this is just a small way to thank him for what he did.
What's the atmosphere going to be like this Saturday at JPJ when good Lord willing I'll be up there, and good Lord willing you will as well?
Well, I think it'll be huge just because it's North Carolina, and even though Tech is the new modern-day villain for most Virginia fans, the old schoolers still believe it's North Carolina, and it has been for decades and decades. So anytime Carolina comes to town, it brings out some of the worst Virginia fans, or maybe the best. I don't know. It depends on your point of view, but I think the fact that they're having the Tony Bennett court naming ceremony before the game will get people pretty fired up, and then the aftermath will be icing on the cake, so to speak.
It's always icing on our cake of coverage for the Virginia Cavaliers when Jerry Ratcliffe joins us in the fast lane. Hootie, good to speak with you. Thank you for your time.
Great to be with you, Ed. See you soon.
Now to Just For You Haters, left hand up the Commanders.
President of Bowie TV Sports, Madam President, or boots on the ground with the Washington Commanders. Present in the press room is what we're going with now for the next handful of months with Candy Waller, who's with us in the fast lane. Seawall, great to be speaking with you. The coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball now starting to take shape for the Washington Commanders. First of all, DJ Williams, elevated from quarterbacks coach, or elevated to quarterbacks coach. This is not DJ Williams, the former Miami linebacker who is traversing following the Canes, which you can hear tonight, 6:30 airtime, VTRN Sports app. This is the son of Doug Williams. What's your assessment about whether this is a qualified candidate, DJ Williams, who deserves this opportunity?
I think absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he's absolutely qualified for this role. I know that others may look at it, of course, and it's a fair question, right? Okay, he's the son of Doug Williams. Is this just like that type of hire, or does he actually have the skill set and the knowledge and experience to operate this role? And I would say yes. I would say yes, he has that experience. They're showing, taking a lot of faith and bringing on some younger minds and skills and just innovation and creativity to this staff. And of course, it doesn't help that his dad is Doug Williams, right? So, I mean, just that knowledge from Doug's perspective and work and him being a quarterback across the league. He wasn't just with the Commanders, right? So across the league and having that skill set just growing up and coming in, I think it means a lot. So excited to see what he brings here because so far, based on who he has worked with in the league, there's been nothing but rave reviews about it.
5 years offensive assistant with the New Orleans Saints, then Atlanta, where he was the offensive assistant and assistant quarterbacks coach this past year. DJ Williams gets that promotion from the ATL back, because his dad was Doug Williams, back to D.C. with the Washington Commanders. Part of the staff of new offensive coordinator David Blau. We touched on that last week in the fast lane. The other part of the offensive staff that appears to be taking shape for the Washington Commanders is Darnell Stapleton, the offensive line coach who's going to take the spot of Bobby Johnson, who was fired after this season. Internal promotion. How leery should Commanders fans be given the concerns? Or, much like from Kingsbury to Blau, Johnson to Stapleton still provides a difference in philosophies and teaching?
I think that this is an excellent hire. I will. And I think if you were Coach Bobby Johnson that, even though he's not here, I'm almost certain he would say the same thing. That if, Darnell was going to be promoted, which he has been, then that is an awesome, kind of backfill, if you will, for him. It still continues on with that overall notion of consistency, continuity, someone that the guys are familiar with, taking from the example of the younger guys, right, with Brandon Coleman, Josh Connolly Jr., as well as the veterans, and Tyler Biotis, Jeremy Tunsil, Sam Cosmi, and then, of course, their depth pieces as well. So I think they're really taking an opportunity to promote from within with those bright minds, again, bringing that innovation, creativity. And another topic that we haven't really talked a lot about is that even when they're younger, hey, sometimes they're around the same age, they can maybe relate a little bit more, right? So I think this is a good thing for the organization as well.
And just another interesting nugget to wrap it up with Seawall on the offensive side of the ball. Shane Tobe will now be the assistant offensive line coach. His dad is Dave Tobe, who's one of the best special teams coordinators in the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs. Just worth filing that little nugget away. Seawall, last one for you. Clarity on the defensive side of the ball. How long till we get it?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Clarity, defensive side. How long before we get that?
I think we're waiting. We're all waiting to see what happens with the defensive coordinator role as things are starting to take shape across the league with another head coach firing today with the Bills. Then, others, just kind of taking shape of their staff, right? We know that Kevin Stefanski is getting his staff together. We've heard the rumblings around who John Harbaugh is choosing for his staff. I think Miami's already, their staff is taking place and taking shape now that they have, locked in their head coach. So hopefully this week, but one of the things that we talked about last week was, hey, teams still have to play. Let's see where this lands once more teams start to get eliminated throughout the playoffs. So I think that's just what we're seeing happening here as people are available because their team has been eliminated from the playoffs. Now there's a bit more options that you can interview.
Yes, and everybody knew about John Harbaugh to the Giants late last week. If you were sleeping Saturday night, Sunday morning after the Seahawks blowout of the Niners, it got snuck in that Kevin Stefanski from Cleveland and now Atlanta Falcons head coach. And then within the last hour, Jeff Hafley, defensive coordinator for Green Bay, will now be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Seawall, head of our coverage, thank you for joining us and imparting some of that wisdom today in the Fast Lane.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And I'll be talking to you guys again soon.
Look forward to it. Candy Waller with us in the Fast Lane from Bowie TV Sports. When we return, David Cunningham of TexLiveline.com on the Hokies, hoops, and football when we return here in the Fast Lane.
Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your trusted dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for over 50 years. With more selection, more value, and more finance options. Plus, your trade is worth more. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Your search ends at the Motor Mile. Choose from over 900 quality pre-owned vehicles, plus a massive selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, plus the used car superstore. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles at one location. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got more than any other dealer in the area. The Sheeler Motor Mile delivers choices. Here's the difference. Sheeler owns the finance company and makes getting approved for credit simple and easy on the Motor Mile. Flexible financing options for every budget to get you on the road fast. Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile with a certified friendly staff and no games, no gimmicks. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
A cool food concept sparks curiosity. What about two concepts at one restaurant? That's even better. Oliver's on Rivermont is Lynchburg's first multi-concept restaurant. Pick items from the traditional Oliver's menu, the 801 Raw Bar menu, or mix and match. And you'll appreciate the consistency of Oliver's new kitchen and serving staff. Two cool concepts in one. Only available at Oliver's on Rivermont.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Boy, Mike Young was in rare form in the post-game press conference after the win against Notre Dame, to the point where our next guest was apparently catching strays, which we will share right now as we get ready to lead you into
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the Virginia Tech Hokies.
with David Cunningham of TechSideline.com. David, did you dodge the strays that Mike Young was firing your way when he had this to say in the press conference against Notre Dame?
When they make 10 threes a game, they win. Mr. Statistician over here, Mr. Analytics, David Cunningham. When they make 10 threes a game, they win. When they make 6 threes a game, they lose. We limited them to 6 threes.
Mr. Statistician, Mr. Analytics. David, which title do you prefer? Should we call you Managing Editor, Mr. Statistician, or Mr. Analytics?
You know what? I don't really care. It's funny. I think this all comes from a couple of weeks back. Mike was talking about where maybe it was Virginia ranked in a certain analytics, and I held my finger up to correct him, and he's been cracking jokes ever since. No, that was funny. All things considered, the Hokies played pretty well the other day, huh?
Yeah, they did. Best performance. Was it an exhale for Virginia Tech that, look, they would like to have gotten one of those buzzer beaters, but through all of it, they're still 3-3 in the ACC, and I wouldn't put them in the Virginia and Duke bracket, but I put them in the spot where you find that next tier of teams, and I guess I could put Clemson up there with Virginia and Duke. But outside of that, there's a lot of teams that all have tournament caliber ability, but are inconsistent enough that Tech could pick off a number of them.
Yeah, Ed, I think the way you look at the ACC is it's a much better conference this year, much improved. But the bottom line is that you're not going to win every single game. That's just not how this game works. It's not easy. You're going to lose some games at the buzzer despite playing really, really well. And I think the biggest thing is you can bounce back. And yes, Notre Dame is towards the bottom of the conference, not one of the better teams, I should say. And they're without Marcus Burton, their best player, and he's been hurt since December. But the way they bounced back, I thought was particularly impressive. And guess what? They've got a chance to go improve to 4-3 in the league this week and get a Q1 win at Syracuse.
Yeah, they do. All of a sudden, looking through all that, they could be 4-3. You could get a road win against Syracuse. You've got Louisville this coming Saturday as well. And Brown and his status, it seemingly is just questionable throughout the month of January right now. For Virginia Tech, what's your level of concern with what you saw? Or maybe not concern is the right way to phrase it. What's your level of encouragement with the fact that they rebounded the ball well? They drove to the rim and drew free throws, and they converted it in their late game misses this time or when the outcome was not in doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you saw them really attack when they're shooting that number of free throws. Anybody who shoots that many free throws in a game is going to have a lot of success, I think, when you get to the foul line like that. But honestly, more than anything, their defense is what continues to be the driving force, I think. They played really well on defense against SMU. They just didn't necessarily close it out on the free throw line late. I think they've been good enough defensively. I think there's a lot of good takeaways, but the way their three-point defense continues to stay steady, they've only allowed 2 teams all year, VCU and Western Carolina, to shoot above 40 from 3. That's an impressive number. And I think the way they've continued to attack and adjust, and Notre Dame's kind of a scrappy team that's going to muck it up, you have to find ways to win games. And I thought the resolve was really, really good from this team.
Yeah, that's the best way to phrase it, is that the resolve was what you would want for the Virginia Tech Hokies, and the way they really looked as strong as you would expect them to have looked. Meanwhile, for Virginia Tech, we touched on that. The Lady Hokies, we got on them a couple of weeks ago, particularly after that loss to Louisville, which even with the win against NC State yesterday, granted it was an overtime, doesn't look nearly as bad. But your assessment of Megan Duffy's team, I know they were off Sunday, but they've not just won 3 in a row. They've looked very convincing. Have they flipped a script and turned a corner into a team now that may not be on Louisville's level, not that anyone is, but maybe in a spot where, again, they could play their way into that tournament berth that Hokie fans expected?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've done enough over these past couple of weeks to kind of convince fans and show fans what they're capable of. I think you look at this Virginia Tech team, and it's pretty impressive the way that they've responded. Granted, they haven't necessarily played the best competition. Syracuse on the road is pretty good, and they blew out the Orange by 20. But then Boston College and SMU they're kind of towards the bottom of the league, not great. But I think the way the Hokies have gone about their business and carried themselves has been very impressive, Ed. They needed to bounce back. They did. They're above 500 in the league now. And they've got Clemson, a pretty good team coming to town. And they got Wake Forest, another team towards the bottom of the conference. And then they've got Pitt. Like, there are wins in front of them. The back half of their schedule is really, really difficult. But if they can continue to kind of surge right now and set up for later in the year, I think it will put them in a good position. But I like the way they've responded and bounced back, because they were in a tough spot after a Miami win that they should have had, or a Miami loss that they should have had. They blew a big lead, and then they went on the road to Louisville, and it wasn't a close game. So I think they've kind of bounced back well, kind of gotten their stuff together over these last couple weeks and built some confidence back up.
Other nuggets when it comes to the Virginia Tech Hokies is David Cunningham of TechSideline.com is stopping by with us in the fast lane. We've got a flurry of commitments the last couple of days for Virginia Tech when it comes to football. Your colleague Chris Coleman has got the 1 or 2 paragraphs about each transfer portal signing. And you just dropped the TSL podcast earlier today, this afternoon, to get my usher on. I must confess, I have not consumed either of them yet. They are both on my to-consume list from TechSideline.com. Virginia Tech, the transfer portal class. Overall, now that we know who is left, and we'll start to see more of who comes in, are you believing this is the positive addition and upgrade that many Hokie fans expected? Maybe not James Franklin's ceiling to be, but delivering in the first year.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about what you expect, about what you hope for. You got your quarterback for the next couple of years in Ethan Grunkemeyer, but they also added a lot of pieces and are kind of revamping this roster. You got to go position by position, but I think they've added a couple cornerbacks that can really help. Defensive end, I'm still interested to see what happens there. They've added some linebackers. They revamped a wide receiver room that needed it, and man, And they've got 21 scholarship offensive linemen right now. They've added a lot up front. Added some tight ends too. So I think they've done a lot of good stuff in a couple different areas. You got to do it across the board. Even added a punter. So it's about what I expected. I expected James Franklin to come in and hit the ground running, and that's what he and his staff have done. And we'll see if there are a couple any late commitments. But I think right now this roster is shaped up to be in a pretty good spot.
When you look at units that you would like to see more added, is defensive line the one that pops off the most immediately in terms of just a volume of depth pieces, considering the offensive line has got 20 plus and the defensive side's got a number of bodies, but there's not a lot of proven depth there?
Yeah, I look at defensive end. I mean, they lost Kamari Morgan, a guy who was committed to them from Baylor. It sounds like there was an admissions issue, and he's not going to be able to get into Virginia Tech. So that's one fewer body they had at defensive end. That's a position I look at and go, okay, you've got Hilson from Missouri, but there's no experience outside of that. And even Hilson is a little bit inexperienced. He's a highly touted prospect, but none of these guys have gone out and proven it. I mean, their oldest guys in that defensive end room are redshirt juniors and Jason Abbey and Asen Stevens, who have kind of been backups these last couple of years. So I'm curious to see if they can go get another impact player there. That's kind of the room I'm looking at. I think they did pretty well up front offensively, and at defensive tackle, I think they're okay. But linebacker and defensive end are two positions I'm looking at going, interesting. They could kind of be in a little bit of better position, especially at defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't have enough bodies in the trenches, and that is such a key cog if you want to be able to make a deep run. Meanwhile, the inside, it's always deep, it's knowledgeable, and there's plenty more worth consuming at techsideline.com. He links it up at The Real Decon on Twitter as well. David, thank you for joining us today in the Fast Lane. Can't wait to dive into the articles and listen to the latest TSL pod.
Much appreciated, Ed. Talk to you soon.
David Cunningham from techsideline.com with us here in the Fast Lane as we get ready to send it over to the College Football Playoff Championship game. I've got the 16-1 of Miami, but I'll be the first to admit I've added Indiana to a number of different I'm going to curse for a second, but parlays, because I don't like to drop a parlay. But when it comes to those, the latest one I might add would be Seattle to win against the Rams, parlayed with Indiana, because, I've got those two futures, 16-1 on Miami and 26-1 on the Rams to win their respective league championships. So, by the way, plus 4.5 for the Bears to cover last night. Nice to get a little middle out of that too. So we'll find out how that unfolds. 6:30 tonight airtime, Miami and Indiana. Thanks for listening to The Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WVGM Lynchburg.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Breaking news. Another NFL head coaching vacancy has been filled. The Dolphins hiring Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley